So I've got a couple of VAs I'm working with on Upwork. I have a large part of my business is content repurposing. So I record videos and then I have them cut into clips. And so I have one VA who watches the videos and chooses the spots where it should be cut to separate a longer video into shorter clips. Then I have another video editing VA who actually makes those cuts. So those are two separate jobs. Then I have someone who schedules my videos and social media posts. So she'll schedule on YouTube, she'll schedule on Facebook, Instagram, podcast episodes. She'll do all the scheduling. Great. I've also had her create Canva images for me, just basically loading in pre-chosen text quotes into Canva with a template. I've used Otter for transcriptions, and I've had someone edit those transcriptions. So that's something I'm not currently having as part of the operation, but I'd love to bring that back in. So I've taken all sorts of projects for content repurposing, and in part due to the difficulty of managing it all myself, certain things have fallen by the wayside. And then, so I've reached a roadblock in certain areas where, for example, those transcriptions, I'd love to make them a book. I have a big document that's a draft, still needs some editing. I want to turn that into a physical book, but I don't really want to touch the draft anymore. So that's another project that's in the works, that's in the mix. So I'd say overall, I've got 3 to 5 people I'm working with fairly consistently. When there's a holdup, it's often me. In some cases, I'm still like checking the work and making some tweaks to it before moving it to the next step. And so that's an additional holdup. It's not simply copy paste link from here to there. It's also, I'm looking at that and reviewing it, making some changes, and then continuing the flow. So that could be a separate job, is just to tweak what was given to me. I don't want to be doing the tweaking anymore. But at the same time, though, sometimes it does need tweaks. And so I'm continually working to improve the initial job and training that person so that it doesn't require tweaking going forward. That being said, he might not be the person, it might still need another layer of editing, for example. So like with the clip suggestions, maybe the clip needs a better title, or maybe the clip needs a different decision point. I'm going to really let it be. I'm not going to look for total perfection on everything. And so I'm going to generally trust his clip decisions in terms of the timestamps, but the titles could use improvement sometimes. So it might require either you, or if it's a bigger patch, hiring someone else to tweak those titles before they're moved to the video editor. But I want to remove myself from the process. I'm not looking to micromanage. I want to move away from that. I'm very much the messy entrepreneur. That's a weakness of mine in terms of having structure, having, having documents of best practices. It's all in my head. It's all in my head. Like there are certain jobs where especially for the social media person who's been scheduling, so I'm teaching her how to schedule on IGTV using Creator Studio, or teaching her Libsyn for podcasting and how to schedule in there. So I've made some documents for her with screenshots and arrows pointing here and there. So there's some documentation, but that's largely the extent of it, is teaching her those different platforms. I don't have someone currently doing social media for me. I have the person who is scheduling posts. So scheduling posts in the Facebook group. So she's scheduling, you can schedule in a Facebook group up to 60 days in advance. And so I have her scheduling typically 4 images and 4 videos per day. And so that's the extent of her role there. So then there's other things involved, like approving new posts. I have post approval turned on. So one thing I want to take off my plate is approving posts. Some posts shouldn't be approved, others should. It's fairly simple, and I can document that. The other thing is approving new members, and also capturing their emails, because I have as a question when they join, share your email. I'd love to, of course, save those emails and then upload them into my email program. I use GetResponse for that. That could be a once a day thing. That could be a twice a day thing. That's a more admin thing. That could be you. If I choose, or if after some deliberation, maybe social media manager could be a more active role that might require somebody else.
Right. Okay. Where else are you posting?
So I'm
Facebook
posting
groups.
So Facebook group, Instagram, I'm using 2 programs. I'm using IGTV through Creator Studio. And then I'm also using later.com, drag and drop images there and such. And so that's something that, again, that social media person could be doing, the person who schedules posts, but that's where it's happening. Aside from that, there's YouTube and there's podcasts. Like I'm the one managing the flow. I'm the hold up a lot of cases. And I want to grow. I don't want to be stuck in the current content repurposing flow because I want to get to a place where in terms of that, if I create the videos, I don't need to be involved anymore. I'd rather focus on my unique skill set, which is the LSAT, recording videos, teaching classes. That's where I want to focus my time. The afterwards part, I want to have the system in place to remove myself from that so that it just flows. Certain things become podcasts if they're longer, certain things become clips for social media, everything gets scheduled. I'd love to scale up so that right now, let's say I have 3 videos on YouTube going out a day by default, but there's hundreds in the bank that just need to be scheduled. They need thumbnails, they need end screens added. And that's an endless process because there's always more clips going out. If I record one 20-minute video, that could be 10 clips. So it scales exponentially, which means I would love to get to a place where I have 20 clips going out every single day indefinitely. It's possible, they're in the bank. It's just a question of doing that work on the back end to make it happen. That's my primary focus. So if I'm creating new content, it's typically videos. So typically it's recorded one-on-one coaching sessions or classes I've taught. And I'm not really doing a whole lot of writing anymore. I have plenty of articles from the past, but I'm not writing new ones. But written material could be a form of content given transcriptions. So on the one hand, there's like getting that system flowing smoothly to fuel this whole content repurposing machine and continuing to increase volume. So for example, I have 10 to 12 pieces of content going out on Instagram every single day. So that's maybe half images, half videos. I'm really in the volume game. So I'm looking to create a lot and just ramp it up so that theoretically YouTube could be once per hour. Instagram could be once per hour. Facebook could be once per hour theoretically. I find that volume is a strength of mine given the volume of content that I'm producing. I'm not looking to schedule videos for 2023 or 2024. This is all like the backlog, which is eating up a lot of my energy. It's like because it's just growing. And I know that I'm not going to be able to manage that flow myself anymore and continue producing new stuff simultaneously. So I want to also I focus a lot on the backlog side of things, but there's also the possibility space where I'd love support. So in terms of like, I'm currently doing 2 to 3 classes per week. One holdup on that is preparation for those classes, or even just scheduling the notifications for my paid course students. So if I could get support in terms of like prep materials for class. So if I have like a little notepad document with some brief notes or of what I'm going to cover based on previous material I already have. Like if I have an article on something, that could become raw material for my class that I teach. But putting that together is work. Or creating slides, if I'm using slides, that's work. I have the material already, it just needs to be put into slides and loaded up. I don't need to be the person doing that. If I wanted to do 4 to 5 classes per week instead of just 2 to 3, that's a holdup for me. So, and then also just brainstorming, envisioning what could future class formats look like. I've played with a lot of things. It was cool to hear you mention that you've worked with coaches. I'd love to hear more on that because that's really a space I'm playing in, merging the coaching world with test preparation. Very few people are looking at those intersections. I love to play in those intersectional spaces there, combining things from different niches together to create something that's new and different. And I always want to be leaning into a new uncomfortable space because I'm putting content out. Other folks can catch up. I want to keep leaning into the edge of what's possible. So for example, I've done group coaching sessions on YouTube just with members of my email list. A couple of those publicly, I want to do 100 of them. And then I want to think, and that might take a year or 2 even, but that's fine. Then I want to think, okay, well, what's the next class format that I could play with? And so experimenting, brainstorming, if prep is involved, getting support with that. I'm using Zoom webinar and Zoom meetings. Typically, I'm using more Zoom meetings lately because people are on video. There's more of a community feel to them. Most of my classes I don't do any prep for them. So I'll do group coaching. People bring their challenges. I address them on the spot. I'm even having students present on topics. And I've been playing with that space, which again means no prep for me, and they get the benefit of teaching something else. So that's pretty cool. I'll have guest presenters. And so that'll be more of a webinar format, but that could be cool. It's like, I'd love to scale that where I almost have an automation in place for making those invitations, getting them on the calendar, maybe twice per month. getting that set up, then giving them creating the Zoom webinar in Zoom, like creating scheduling it, getting the RSVP link to them so they can promote it on their end, getting it loaded into my system for my students. Then there's also getting the recording of that uploaded. That's something I could use support on. And then the classes that I'm teaching where they do require slides, I have some old slides from years back. And so I've largely been using those, but then I'm taking things just based on my knowledge of the LSAT to prep. So for example, if there are some sample problems publicly available, I'll add those to my agenda and I'll teach from those just due to copyright issues. But that's something where I could make a statement of practices for that, where I could get support for, let's say I'm covering a dozen plus different LSAT question types. I could regiment that so that a support professional knew how to organize things for me so that I just have to show up and even the slides are ready to go. Even the practice problems we're covering are ready to go. And maybe I have those supplied to me 24 to 48 hours prior, just so I can look them over and do a little bit of mental prep, but at least it's already supplied where I'm not like scanning through the exam looking for those problems. For the classes I mentioned with LSAT problems and slides, I'm teaching that more. That's not, so let me think how to put this. I do have student participation, but I'm also driving it more, where I'm bringing the agenda for that sort of PowerPoint class. I'm typically doing one of those per week.
Is that a free class? Do you charge for that?
That's a paid class. So I'm running currently, I have a paid program. It's like a, let me think how to frame it. So it's kind of like a membership site, an online recurring monthly course.
Right. Yep.
I typically have 20 students attending. I'm running one of those types of classes per week. I have 3 different tiers. The top tier is $349 per month. And that includes all access to all the classes. That includes the classes with the PowerPoint. That also includes the group coaching sessions. I'm doing 2 of those per month. Those are a bit more interactive. Like I said, students are bringing their challenges. I'm even having students present on topics. There's no slides for that. That's just students in a meeting. I'm running 2 of those per month. I then have a lower tier where it does not include the group coaching, but it does include the slides classes and some other guest presenters. That's $299 per month. Then I have a bottom tier, which is only on-demand videos, no live component. That's $199 a month. And so they get access to all the recordings of everything, but they don't get to attend live. I run it through an online course host platform called Ruzuku. It's similar to Kajabi, if you're familiar with that one. It's similar to Kajabi. I've grandfathered it in at an old price with this one, so I'm sticking with it, even though it's not perfect. Maybe eventually I'll move on, but for now I'm making it work. And that's really the biggest focus of my business, I would say, is my courses right now. I also, of course, I do one-on-one coaching as well, and that's a big focus of mine. But the courses, I think, are really, they have the biggest growth potential because it scales and it's recurring, which is also huge for me. I also have some ebooks, but they're not a focus anymore. They're from years back. I'm not really looking to focus. They're ebooks, they're PDFs. I sell them through my website, but it's not a major focus going forward. I do have this print book project I mentioned, and that's really more as, again, the repurposing, where I'm looking to do it as lead generation. So this would be a cheap guide under $10 published through Amazon KDP, but it would be a physical book. And that's meant to be lead gen for my one-on-one coaching and my courses primarily.